Hi, my name is Denise Martin. I am the author of Eating My Way to Heaven and the creator of a new reality TV show called The Transformation Station, Celebrity Sugar Detox. I'm told that I'm going to have a difficult time pitching the show without a sizzle reel, and the challenge is I don't own the mansion overlooking Los Angeles yet that I want to do our filming in, and I don't have a committed celebrity to participate in our transformation station. So it's difficult to show you what the show's going to be like, but I'm going to give it a try. My first choice would be to have Yolanda Foster on the show. She is struggling with Lyme's disease right now, and the doctors have given her 1 million pills and supplements. I understand she's visiting a holistic clinic half-heartedly in Florida, hoping it might work. But I'd like to show you what I would do with Yolanda if she was a guest at our transformation station. First of all, Yolanda's everyday life in our family at the transformation station can be anything she wants it to be. She can spend hours in the office taking phone calls and faxes and Skype and whatever she needs to do to keep her business life going forward, or texting lovey-dovey things to her beloved or whatever. She can sleep all day if she wants to, but you agreed to be here away from your family and go through this process on film, so you must want to have an amazing experience. I'd recommend you get up and just really go for it. She might spend some time in the garden with Patrick, learning how to turn her amazing property into a Garden of Eden. She might sit by the pool with Dr. Rosas and talk about dietary options and supplements and herbs and, things that she can change in her physical regime that will affect her disease. She might just spend some time playing laser tag, running all over the property, or jumping on the trampoline with Ezekiel, having a ball instead of going through a grueling fitness workout. And then I would try and find my moment with Yolanda to do the really hard work that she came here to do, to get to the core of her dis-ease and address it and heal it and let it go. We might find our moment at 2 o'clock in the morning watching a movie together when neither of us can sleep, sitting by the pool in the moonlight, or walking the property, or weeding in the garden. But I would use my psychic gift and my intuition and my understanding and my observation skills to tell her what I believe is driving her Lyme's disease and what it's going to take to get well. Okay, Yolanda, so here we are, and Spirit has been knocking on my door since you came into my life via The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and I believe I have some powerful insight into your Lyme's disease. But before I lay this really heavy personal information on you, I want to share a couple of stories on why I think my insight is accurate and why it would be valuable for you to listen. I once worked with a woman who was quite as wealthy or famous as you, but she had some means and she got cancer. And she was into natural health. I mean, she was a macrobiotic cooking instructor. So she taught people how to do this really extreme healing diet. So when I met her and found out she was very ill with cancer, she had already had 1 breast removed and was still struggling. She, at the time, was bald and thin from the chemotherapy. She had traveled the world looking at all kinds of alternative healing processes, was open to anything, and had the money to try anything. But she was still dying, and she had a new boyfriend. She was gaga in love. I mean, it just seemed like she had all the ingredients for health and happiness, but she was very ill. So the first thing I did was search her kitchen when she was gone for a few moments, to see if she was lying, if she was really a junk food junkie, and she wasn't as healthy and pristine as her diet would recommend she be. And boy, I didn't find anything. She definitely was dedicated to her lifestyle. So then the only thing left to look at, in my opinion, was the emotions. So I offered to do a didgeridoo treatment on her, which is a kind of Australian horn, that you've seen the Aboriginals use. But it has a vibration that penetrates the body, and I believe it also is a tool for opening up your channel of spirit. So I put this woman in her bathtub fully clothed and comfortable and candles lit, and I played this horn close to her body. And while I was doing it, I got a message. And the message simply said she's been sexually abused. So when the treatment was over, or the didgeridoo session, I said, I believe you've been sexually abused. And she said, well, you know, I looked at that. My therapist and I looked at that, and we couldn't find anything. And I said, you need to look again, or it's going to kill you. I said my goodbyes lovingly. I really didn't have much more time or energy for this woman. I was in my own personal crisis, working my own life. Although I was healthy and alive, I still had my own baggage. And so we parted, and 4 months later, I ran into her at the Metaphysical Church we both attend, and she was robust and healthy looking with a full head of hair. And she said to me, you were right. It was my brother. And we worked through it, and I'm in a full remission. And she credited me with helping her save her own life by poking through her denial. I believe I have a similar gift for you, Yolanda. I believe that all disease starts with an emotion that doesn't get addressed, and so it just becomes some big physical train wreck until we're able to look at it. That's what happened to me. My fear of processing the horror and pain in my childhood was so big that I nearly killed myself with one addiction or dysfunction after another, not wanting to look at it. And when I finally looked at it, it was small in comparison to what I had done to myself. And then the heavens opened up, and I got to have this heaven on earth experience by letting go of that enormous weight. And I came out of menopause immediately, and I became fertile and birthed a child, and all kinds of extraordinary things happened. But I believe it's because I let those core issues that were literally making me physically ill, putting me in the grave, come up, and I looked at them and walked through them. From watching The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, I think I have some insight into the things that are growing into this deadly disease for you. And that's what I'd like to share now. Okay, one more story before I lay this on Yolanda. I hope to have a little credibility here, but I worked with another woman who was, well, very wealthy and had a lot of means, and she had MS. And she agreed to do this process of letting me dig into her baggage and her psyche and her diet and help her get well. And we started in her beautiful mansion, looking at her kitchen and talking about certain things. I had known her, you know, an hour at this point, but she was going to go for the ride. And so I said to her, so can you identify any, like, things that were going on in your life, any trauma, any crisis, you know, before you started noticing the MS symptoms? And she said, no, everything was fine, you know, just going along fine. And all of a sudden I started having these motor control issues and da-da. Oh, okay, so your personal life was doing well at the time. And she said, well, you know, my husband cheated on me, and it was kind of a big... Okay, so your husband cheated on you, and then all of a sudden you start getting these symptoms, and your life is a train wreck. Can you see how perhaps... Excuse me, the dog's shaking her ears. Can you see how perhaps that emotional trauma weakened your immune system and opened the door for multiple sclerosis? And she was like, wow, you know, I can see how that's possible. I said, so you're still married to this man, I take it. You two have resolved these issues. No, you know, I cheated on him too, and I feel really guilty about it. Okay, bingo. Bingo, can you accept that getting sick was easier than facing this guilt and working through this trauma? That now that you're so critically ill that the whole family has stopped and everybody's just tiptoeing and whispering around you, that's easier than facing the guilt and shame that you're packing? And she said, yeah, she could see that. But she couldn't do it. And she ended up running away from me, and she got sicker. But she did have a peek into what was bothering her. And one more story. We had a schizophrenic client in our sugar detox center. And I spent one night with him all night long, up, talking about the voices in his head that he related to Satan, telling him to do things, saying mocking things, doing things to him. And after only a few days of being sugar-free, of being in this wonderful Eden-type environment, of being loved and validated and, having kittens sleep on his chest, he said to me, I get it. He remembered a child mocking him in grade school, and that voice was still in his head, and he recognized it at that moment when he got clear enough physically and had enough support that Satan wasn't talking to him. His childhood demons were the painful things he had held on to in an extremely dysfunctional, incestuous, emotionally violent family, and they grew into this monster called schizophrenia. He got it. He verbalized it. He saw it. He felt it. And then he said, I can't do it. I can't do the work. I can't look at this. There's too much. And he chose to go back into his mental illness, believe it or not. So there is a collection of stories of people, starting with me and some that I've worked with on a professional level, who could identify the beginning of their dis-ease. Some of them tackled it, some of them didn't. But I don't believe you can without looking at that core issue. Okay, well, I might get sued, but here's what I would say to Yolanda Foster about what I think is causing her dis-ease. She talks about her husband almost every scene on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. She adores him. He adores her. They've both had marriages that were less than perfect. So they come to the table with some baggage. I'm not convinced that she trusts that David Foster won't cheat on her. So there's red flag number one. Her husband is rich and famous and travels a lot and is surrounded by beautiful women often, and I'm just not completely convinced that she's solid in her belief that he won't cheat on her. However, I think it's bigger than that. Yolanda Foster's father died when she was 7. That's got to be the biggest, most defining moment of her life. Her last marriage ended. He apparently cheated on her, so the security and the rock-solid foundation she was looking for from a man in her life came out from under her. Now she's challenged with trusting the man she absolutely adores, no doubt the love of her life. He adores her, but still, you have to learn to trust again. But even more importantly, he's older than her. And I believe that Yolanda Foster is terrified of outliving her beloved husband. By being critically ill, A, she ensures that he's not out screwing around. That would be horrible on his point. That would be horrible for David Foster to get caught screwing around on his critically ill wife. And she can probably guarantee that she won't outlive him. That's a tough one, and it's big, but I believe that's what it's at the core of Yolanda's illness. If she's sick, everything revolves around her, and no other woman will barge into David's life. And she will never have to stand at his funeral. He'll be the one mourning at hers. I've also heard her complain recently about money issues, wishing she had enough money to buy a second or third horse for her daughter. Well, the rumor is she got $25 million out of Mohammed, and even if she can't afford it, why isn't Mohammed providing the second horse for the child, or David can't? But to hear a woman like Yolanda complain about not having enough money, That's big. I mean, I'm sitting here in a Motel 6 trying to figure out how to keep my son off the street and keep feeding us while I promote my book and my success. And I think I have less fear about money than Yolanda does. So she still has money issues. I think she still has great concerns about her husband cheating on her. And I think she's terrified of outliving him. If she could successfully tackle those things while she learns to live without wine and sugary treats, because she's too sick for them now, she could have a miraculous life. But I think she's going to struggle until she looks at this core issue. I hope she'll forgive me for saying it publicly. I love Yolanda. I think she's the classiest thing that's hit reality TV in forever. So if she could do this work on camera and set an example for everybody else that there isn't a pill, there isn't even a beautiful healthy supplement or an organic broccoli that's going to cure her if she doesn't face her core fear, then my God, she could change our population. Love you, Yolanda. Forgive me.